Welcome to the Centre for Brexit Studies YouTube channel. Today we're joined by Senior Fellow Dr. Stephen McCabe. So Steve, 6.6 million people claimed unemployment benefits in the US last week, a massive jump, and universal credit claims are soaring as well. Can we expect these figures to keep rising further?
Well, the simple answer is probably. I know that's a bit equivocal, but the fact is, though, what we're seeing is the worst effects of the sort of economy that we run, where people are in somewhat precarious existences, zero contracts. And the reality is that, of course, as soon as there's any downturn, and of course, we've seen that in a massive way with the closure of sort of restaurants, pubs, clubs, nightclubs, you name it, leisure centres. The people who are employed in these are being let go, as it were. Therefore, of course, that this is their way, if you like, of surviving. So it's pretty dreadful. Okay, maybe it might not sort of spike quite so much because, of course, perhaps the worst effects are now being felt. But it's going to be sort of pretty rough for the next couple of months.
So British Airways are expected to suspend 36,000 staff after grounding most of its fleet due to COVID-19, and they aren't the only airline to be impacted by this crisis so far either. Do you think the likes of BA and EasyJet could just go back to normal after this, or could we expect to see the impact last years?
Well, I mean, to actually just clarify, I think that sort of British Airways, they employ something like 35,000 staff in total. And British Airways, like every other airline, are sort of finding that not surprisingly in the current climate, with no airlines being able to fly, all sort of apart from a few essential flights, there's no revenue. So what many airlines have done, of course, is they can furlough their staff, which of course the government paying for, which of course comes out of taxpayer money. And brings us back to sort of to benefits and so on and so forth that we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. That would be one way of keeping sort of people or giving them some income during the sort of the period when planes are sort of grounded. But I mean, Virgin in particular, they're saying that they need a government bailout to keep the sort of to cover their fixed costs, otherwise they'll go bankrupt. What we're into is a whole lot of issues of sort of indebtedness by sort of companies, Virgin being one example. We saw earlier on the Flybe go bankrupt, quite precisely because of debts. We also got EasyJet, they've got their own problems. The reality is that sort of I don't think the government can keep all the airlines going. So if and I suppose when the crisis ends, how many airlines will be left standing is a sort of very moot question. Will there indeed be the sort of the appetite for travel in the way that we've had in recent years? Just to sort of as an offshoot, I can certainly sort of see the sort of the cruise industry. I mean, that they've really been hit hard. And will people come back and do cruising in the same way that they've done? The travel industry, and of course, airline is a vital part of that, is being sort of wounded in a way which it's very difficult to see how they can sort of have any rapid return. Although the reality is quite clearly, if you've got the airports, you've got the planes, and people want to fly to places, then there will be a recovery of sorts. It's just the sort of the configuration of the sort of companies and their structure and existence. These are all unknown questions, and it's just the big question, of course, we don't know the answer to how long this will go on for, and that's the sort of the most difficult one to answer.
So a group of MEPs say that the Brexit deadline should be pushed back and delayed because of COVID-19. Do you think that this could happen?
Gosh, that's a really difficult question, because quite clearly, I think within the sort of the cabinet, there are a number of very hard Brexiteers. I mean, and everyone knows who they are. I suspect their ideology, under normal circumstances, would have been to sort of to play hardball and then to get some sort of deal. Obviously, in the current crisis, no substantive negotiations are happening. Therefore, it's very hard to see how anything's going to be achieved in the sort of the next, I don't know, 3 months, maybe 6 months. And if, in the absence of anything else, that it's written as a law that we sort of leave at the end of this year, on the 31st of December, and if there's nothing's been agreed, then we leave with no deal, into all sort of the turmoil that will entail. Now, some may argue that of course, given where we're at, Will it make an awful lot of difference? Well, maybe, maybe not. But of course, it would just add in that whole uncertainty going forward. Whereas at least, of course, under, I call them normal circumstances, there would have been hope that we've got something to sort of to cling on to, and some degree of sort of certainty. Because let's face it, in a crisis such as this, you need good neighbours, and the whole idea that somehow by losing the sort of the EU and regaining sort of markets wherever it might be in the developing world and Far East, well, surely the sort of the what's gone on in the last number of weeks should be a wake-up call that you know, that is strategically very dangerous. So you know, the short answer is I don't know, but you know, one would assume in a crisis that what you would do is you would leave that to another day. You know, the big thing is to sort of get through the sort of the difficulties we're experiencing in terms of the health system, and of course the economy and unemployment and everything that's flowing from that for the next number of months. And Brexit can wait till another day.
So the Labour leadership ballot has closed earlier today. A new leader being announced on Saturday. Now, obviously, if COVID-19 wasn't happening at the moment, this would be pretty big news, really. So who do you expect to win? And do you think that this will just be a bit of news that people, you know, just kind of flies over people's heads because of everything else going on in the world?
Well, I mean, the bookies' favourite, and has always been that right from the outset, is Sir Keir Starmer. So if he doesn't win, I mean, and well, outright in the first ballot, then we may go through a couple of sort of iterations. But I you know, I'll win it through the second ballot. But I suspect and hope, you know, for everyone's sake, that it ends quickly. It's been a sort of distraction. It's gone on for too long. Will Keir Starmer, being leader of the Labour Party, make any difference in the current climate? Well, no. I mean, quite clearly, the government have got a massive majority. He's got an uphill battle. Well, again, I'm assuming he wins. Whoever does win for the Labour Party has got an uphill battle. You know, it's, as I say, it's seen as a kind of minor news story in the sort of the current climate. There will come a time, hopefully, and sort of not too far in the future, when we can start thinking about sort of the post-COVID climate and get back into the important stuff, including Brexit. But as I say, having a sort of a strong party leader, and, you know, dare I say, somebody who's perhaps not Jeremy Corbyn, well, it certainly won't be Jeremy Corbyn, and the sort of the change in philosophy and ideology that will bring to the party may help to sort of to reinvigorate his fortunes. But, you know, as I indicated a couple of moments ago, boy oh boy, he's starting from a sort of pretty low base in terms of sort of the electoral representation. Yeah, high number of members, but nonetheless, you can do nothing unless you've got some sort of chance of getting into power. And from where they're at the moment, that looks like a pretty tall order for any election that will probably occur 4 years from now.
Thanks for joining me, Steve, and best wishes to those watching.
Absolutely.